The Search for Words. Chapter 1. Introduction. Jazz dances on the background of the room. Glasses start to be heavy to lift, but the alcohol lights up the mind when the natural shade takes over the horizon. There he sits again, last man standing. Like a war hero, he stinks. His cheek is kept above the table by a sleeping arm. The other palm is glued to a glass of whiskey. At first it was cold on the rocks, but time melted the ice and the seas were once more enlarged. Like a sailor, our guy finds himself looking for a harbor to sleep, or even maybe a dream to keep. His eyes are staring into a close and blurry distance. The wooden table is a far continent, and the door of the bar that he is in is another galaxy. The continent exhibits traces of habits. Every single iteration of the glass touching his lips, and then the table, he turns the glass 3 times round. The consequent circles on the table sheet make the surface look like a drawing of a sunflower by a 4-year-old. Each person has their tale. Each person has their table. And so, each person has their continent. This guy's story is written on this 50 by 50 inch squared surface in the language of the wordless. His lips, meanwhile, have taken the optimal form of a recipient. Every wave of this ebbless flow eroded the slow curve of his mouth into a seeming smile. Drank so much that his lips dried up. His face resembles a prairie where the river has evaporated hand in hand with the reason to hold on. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't sense it coming. He doesn't even care when his palm slips from his chin. The neck muscles have been turned off long ago, and now his forehead is a hammer falling towards an invisible nail. In the bar, the end of the LP is reached. The chronic sound of the needle trying to find a groove to an unfinished song fills the space between 4 walls. The only thing moving in the room is the liquid, still in the grasp of the man that has reached his end. Death by dreamlessness. His name is Jake. We don't really care about his surname in this story, but maybe another one will. This character did lose himself a long time before he tried to find himself at the bottom of the glass he's still holding. It all started 2 months ago. He fell in love with the sound. Actually, it's more a word. To be clear, the sound was a succession of words. They were rough but interacted perfectly. They were glue that nailed one's ears to a wall until they finished a sentence. But of course, it's impossible that these words didn't attract, because after the words, there were the lips that produced them. Red, like they were filled with lava from the center of another planet, surrounded by silex stones as lips. All she could do is spit fire. On a common street corner, a girl was telling about life, and her lips showed way more than that. She had tasted life. Her closed eyes were like balanced weights contrasting the hard syllables she produced without asking for any apology. The shock waves that left her lungs petrified people all around. Standing still, strangers actually listened. Whenever she would go back to the surface and breathe, travelers looked down and continued their lonely road. Jake was also a stranger that day. But for once, he and the other people hadn't felt alone. Jake couldn't close his eyes until they dried up and had to be kept away from this aberration. An hour later, as if waking up from a daydream, Jake fell out of his dusty chair. A chair on the second floor of a building with a desk in front of him, a name card on the side. He was an interim in a little company that wrote the code for some sort of portable computer. He had risen from behind his desk, where he sat like a caveman, resembling a semi-hibernating mammal during the winter. He could still feel the voice covering his eyes. A reflection of the future, or maybe it was a homicide of the past. At least it was a new wind in the land of the wingless animals. The few hairs he grew by his father's genes unfolded and made it seem like his head was just next to an exploding grenade. He was not on acid, but he couldn't stop hallucinating while his once so fixed hands balled to fists. With one stroke, he broke his desk. Meanwhile, his other arm reached for his coat at the other side of the room. I do realize that this is near to impossible, but I'm telling a story, bear with me. Passion led him from the second floor to the first, and on his way there he almost broke his ankles on the staircase, but then the next staircase actually broke his ankles. He humped his injured ass on the street, still looking for that little sound he heard earlier before, but couldn't find it. Then he trembled, fell over, and chopped up a piece of his tooth on the sidewalk. He lost consciousness, seemingly yet again. End of chapter 1.